If you are struggling to set boundaries, if you are struggling to do the things that you really want to do, and instead noticing yourself opting to do the things that you should do or the things that others expect of you, then I want to offer you a perspective today. From a very young age, we are taught to resist our own urges and to do things in a specific way that may not be in alignment with what we really want in those moments. And if you're listening to the show, most likely you grew up in a culture where your parents kind of told you what to do from a very young age, and you went to school at a very young age. And all of these structures, institutions, and just ways of being are designed. The way that my parents parented was actually designed to put me into a space of control rather than creativity, into a space of conforming rather than authenticity, into a space of certainty. This is what you're going to learn, this is what you're going to do, rather than exploration. Where do you want to guide? What do you want to learn? Where do you want to lead? And all of these things, starting at a very young age, disconnects us from our own intuition, from our own sense of self. And what happens later in life that I notice is people start to go, I really want to do this thing. And when I ask, well, what's stopping you from doing this thing? There's a few things that happen. Sometimes it's they can't quite name. I don't know why. I just don't do it. I just don't have motivation to do it. I just lack inspiration to do it or the energy to do it in that moment. Sometimes it's, well, I really want to do this thing for myself. And instead, I do the laundry or I clean the house or I do all these other things. And what's happening in those moments is we, first of all, have become so disconnected from listening to the urges that we have with inside of ourselves that when we have a moment when the urge comes up, we've become accustomed to suppressing that urge and then instead doing the thing that is expected of us or that we're told to do or that others tell us is the right thing to do in that moment. So that's like one of the things that happens very basically. Another thing that's happening in this moment is we're just more comfortable. Our nervous systems, our brains and our bodies have become more comfortable with this state of suppression of truth, with this state of resisting self, that it's actually our comfort zone to do that rather than to say, oh my gosh, I have this urge inside of me to paint and I have space and I have time right now. I could actually sit down and paint. Let's say, I mean, I'm a mom. So let's say, after dinner and my daughter's in bed and I have a little bit of time to unwind and do whatever I want. Maybe I have this urge to paint something. And rather than pulling out paints and sitting and just letting myself flow with that, I might find myself folding laundry or cleaning the kitchen or prepping things for the next day or keeping busy doing the other things. And for me, I notice specifically in my own life, when I have opportunities to follow my own urges, follow my own creativity, explore where I'm being guided to maybe learn something new or read a book or engage in a certain way with my life, my default is responsibility. My default for me is do the responsible thing, which might look like cleaning the house, organizing things, paying bills, doing something for, the family schedule or doing some work, going through emails, whatever it might be. I personally noticed that my conditioning from a very young age, I mean, when I was really little, I had chores. And not only did I have chores, but if my brother or my sister didn't do their chores, that responsibility fell to me. And so I can see how my nervous system is more comfortable in moments of choice to move towards responsibility, even if it's not what I really want. And I see this more and more and more when I have people come to me and we're exploring, what do you want to create in your life? What do you want from your life? That's, most of the time when someone comes to me, it's either because they want to create something in their life or because something in their life is not working and they're not really sure what that is. So when we explore either of these directions, more often than not, there's this really significant disconnect from they know there's something there inside of them that's calling them to create or experience something different in their life. And yet at the same time, they can't quite connect to it because we learned to disconnect from those things. And it could have been for a lot of reasons. It can be really disappointing for a young person to think, "Oh my god, I want to paint a picture today." And it's like, "No, today's not art day. Today is English. We're doing English right now. You're not doing art right now." And I have a 3-year-old, and the lifestyle that I have created based on what I have learned is we wake up in the morning and we have guidelines, but no rules. I do believe in routine and I do believe in some degree of structure. I think that that's really important to create safety. And I also think it's really important because we are human beings that need to interact with a world where there are social norms and there are, um, you know, rules and responsibilities of being a contributing member of a society where we want to keep other people safe. We want to keep ourselves safe. So learning some routine and some structure at a young age, I think is really valuable. However, if my daughter says, I want to play with Play-Doh, we play with Play-Doh. And then when she's done playing with Play-Doh, you can kind of see she just gets up and she goes and grabs her markers and her paper or her coloring books and she just starts coloring because that's where her urge has taken her. And I've created a lifestyle where, for the most part, she has the freedom to lead where we explore our days based on what she really wants to experience. What does she want to learn? What does she feel engaged in those moments? And I will say this as an adult, witnessing that experience, I also think it takes away a lot of resistance on my part as an adult. For example, as a stay-at-home mom who's choosing to homeschool and with my daughter, it would be really um it would be much more difficult for me if I was saying, "No, now we're reading books, and when we finish reading books, then we're gonna do some math, and after we do math, then we're gonna go for a walk." Trying to force a 3-year-old to do those things in a very specific way. Yeah, we can do it because it's called school. This is what happens in our education system now. We say, "No, we're not doing it this way. We're doing it this way. We're not doing it this way. We're doing it this way." And when we do that enough, we teach people to become compliant. And it doesn't mean they're happy, and it doesn't mean they're self-expressed, but they become compliant because little kids are pretty helpless when it comes to an adult who's saying, "This is how it's done." They really don't feel like they have choice or autonomy. And when they do express um, their dissatisfaction with the experience that's occurring, it usually looks like crying or screaming or anger or any of these things, and then they're taught to suppress that. Stop crying. This is nothing to cry about. We're just coloring instead of reading. Um, and again, there's a disconnect from the emotions. There's a disconnect from the ability to express what it is that they desire because we're not even listening. And if you grew up in a world with all of these things happening, this is like the perfect blend of secret sauce for disconnecting from your truth, disconnecting from your authenticity, disconnecting from exploring your interests, your true desires, and even disconnecting from being able to name those things inside of you. So, as adults, what this looks like is people settle for jobs that they don't want. They settle for lives that they don't really want because someone else said this is what life should look like. Here's what life looks like. By the age of like 3 or 4, you should be in school. And you go to school however many hours a day kids go to school. And throughout that day, every part of your day is controlled. You're told when you can go to the bathroom. You're told when you can eat, when you can play, how you can play, what you're learning. All of these different things are completely controlled. And then when you get out of school, you move on to more schooling, then you move on to a career, you have a family. All of this stuff is laid out for many of us. And very few people are told that there is another option. There is another way. And more often than not, when people choose a different way, they're told that's the wrong way. And that affects our sense of belonging. And there's a deep pull inside to want to do things the right way to feel like you belong, to feel like you're accomplished, to feel like you're doing things in a way that others approve of. There is a deep sense of that. All of these things throughout our life are pulling us further and further and further away from the truth of who we are and the life that we actually came here to live. Because I can tell you right now, none of us came here to live this exact same life on repeat. Nobody that is here loves the exact same things as every other person on the planet and wants to do the exact same things as every other person on the planet. And nobody here is going to want to, I'm a morning person. I love mornings. Get me up at like 5 or 5:30 and have a nice quiet morning. That is my jam. My partner, he does not like mornings. Does not like mornings. So even this idea of it's appropriate to get up at this time because you're supposed to be here at this time, and that's just across the board for everyone, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And for me, it brings a lot of clarity as to why people struggle so much with a sense of fulfillment, with a sense of happiness, with understanding who they are and what they desire, with discovering their own path to create that life. Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense why it's so hard. So if you're one of these people that you're like, oh my God, alarm bells are going off right now because I really struggle with these things. I struggle with this. I struggle with boundaries. I struggle with doing what I really want. I struggle with even knowing what I want. Then I'm going to put this offer out there. I have a free mini course available on my website called What Do You Want? Getting to the Heart of Your Deepest Desires. And the first step I always say to everybody is start to connect to what you want. And this isn't just a cognitive mini course of like logically, what do you want? Because that's where we all live. That's where we all learn. That's where control is. And we don't want more of the same. We want to actually connect to that deeper thing inside of you. We want you to see a greater possibility for your life that is your truth, that is connected to who you are and unique to you. And the experience of knowing what that feels like when it comes alive inside of you. And there's so much more in this course that it's going to offer. So if you head on over to my course, I will put the link in my show notes, sarahmckerling.com, and go into mini courses, and there's a free mini course there. What do you want? Getting to the heart of your deepest desires. Start there. Let me know how it goes. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you.